Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar, how your relationship with yourself can improve your business and your life. We will begin right away. I want to welcome you. If you're here tonight, welcome and thank you for taking the time out to spend your time with me so that I can impart my knowledge to you and help you in your own journey to your goals. So welcome. I really hope that you'll be able to get some value from this training. Just hit in the chat box if you can hear me. I think someone said that they can't hear. Can you still hear me? Okay, wonderful, great. All right, we shall continue. Now you're in the right place tonight if you're open to personal growth and development. If you're someone who is always willing to find different ways in which you can become stronger and even better, have a stronger character, have a stronger mindset, develop the willpower and all that you need so that you can achieve your goals, then you're in the right place. You're also in the right place if you're willing to see another perspective for progress in your business and your life. Because I know perhaps when persons saw this topic, how can your relationship with yourself improve your business and your life? Perhaps they may have wondered and said, this really doesn't apply to me. But I am hoping that as I have seen it, that you will also be able to see it. I will do my best to transmit that knowledge, that you could recognize that though this topic seems unique, it is unique, it is indeed necessary for us to consider our relationship with ourselves in order to achieve further progress in our business and our life. Now, there are some persons who love to use the cliche, that's who I am. If you're such a person, then perhaps you might not get as much value from this training. If you're such a person, I would encourage you to open your mind, to let go of that fixed mindset and open your mind and believe that you can change. Because if you believe that you can change, you will change. It's the first step to making any changes in our life. So I want to welcome you to meet the presenter tonight. I am Dr. Melissa Tranquil, life coach and founder of Peak Living with Mel. I have over 15 years of combined professional experience in both the education and management sector. And I'm also a certified group life coach and certified goal to success coach. And tonight, well, it's 7 p.m. here in the UK, and I know the time will vary in different parts of the world. By the way, Lloyd, would you like to share what time is it in your part of the world? 8 a.m. Lovely. So it's nighttime as well. David. $7 p.m. as well. Great, wonderful. So although there's a time difference, we are going to connect tonight as we go through this training, how your relationship with yourself can improve your business and your life. Let's begin with a few questions. Do you believe, and I wish that you would put your answer in the chat box, yes or no. Do you believe that you have a relationship with yourself? Prior to even seeing this webinar invite, is this something that you would have thought about? Do you believe that you have a relationship with yourself? Great. Thank you. Thank you for responding. Great. Thank you. Great. Someone said they never thought of it. That's wonderful. You're in the right place tonight. Wonderful. The other question I would like to ask is, if you were to choose one word to describe your relationship with yourself, and you don't need to share that word with me if you don't want to, but you can reflect on it, then what would it be? If someone were to ask you in one word, how would you describe your relationship with yourself? What would it be? Would it be one of neglect? Would it be one of consideration? Friendship? Lovely. Lovely. One of friendship, indeed. And I'm looking at the chat as I'm going through this webinar. And the last question I'd like to ask before we dive into tonight's training, do you think that you can have even a greater success if you were to improve your relationship with yourself? Is that possible? Hasn't always been that way. Thanks for sharing. Sure, yes, thanks for sharing. Sure, you can have greater success. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Let's dive in together in tonight's training. Let's explore how your relationship with yourself can bring fruition to your business, professional, and personal life. So what we'll be covering tonight is, what is that relationship that you have with yourself? How your relationship with yourself is impacting the results that you are getting in your life and your business. And thirdly, how to improve your relationship with yourself for overall success. And I'm so excited to be teaching tonight on this topic. I want to invite you to remove any distractions and just focus. And you may want to take notes, feel free to do so. Let me just make a disclaimer here. This teaching, though it sounds like the psychology of the mind, is not a psychology lesson. The objective is just to demonstrate that we have a relationship with ourselves and it contributes to the outcomes that we are getting in our life. Another disclaimer is that I'm not selling anything in tonight's training. Tonight, I'm here to just give you all of myself in terms of my delivery. I'm going to train from my heart and teach you all that I know on the topic. So what is the relationship that you have with yourself? Let's begin with a quote by Sherry Cartier-Scott. She's the author of Transformational Life Coaching. She says, your relationship with yourself is the most important and crucial relationship in your life. And when I read that, I found that to be quite an interesting quote. Because really and truly, we can't run away from ourselves. And even if we neglect to think about it, we are always with ourselves 24/7. Do you agree that your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship that you would have? Yes, thank you. I would agree. And I'm not talking on the spiritual plane here. For those of you who believe in God, we know what that is first. But even the Bible, if I were to just interject this here, even the Bible teaches us how to have a better relationship with ourselves. Because it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So indeed, the relationship that we have with ourselves is indeed the most important relationship that we would have in our life. You see, because the quality of that relationship will impact the quality of your marriage. It will impact your interpersonal relations with other persons, whether it be at work, whether it be your friendships. It will impact your business relations. It will impact even your relationship with your children, because if you haven't developed that self-awareness, and if you haven't gone on that journey to grow and to enhance that relationship with yourself, it would impact how you interact and relate and teach your children. So yes, it is the most important relationship that you would have. So now let's talk about how we define that relationship. And I'm using a quote from the same author, Dr. Scott, on Transformational Life Coaching. She says, the way you hold, perceive, believe in, and relate to you, that is your relationship with yourself. That is how it is defined. How you hold, perceive, believe in, and relate to that relationship. And here are some of the things we can consider when we talk about the relationship with ourselves. Here are some of the things that we can consider. What you think about yourself, how the perception of how others see you, the quality of your own self-talk, how you usually feel about yourself, some of the promises that you make to yourself. What is the value that you place on your own self? How do you treat yourself? Do you care for yourself? Do you neglect yourself? What's your usual behavior? How you go about your decision-making process? Even your daily time management and productivity practices. How you deal with disappointment or failure. how you manage your energy, how you manage change, how you manage the effort that you make in your goals. And there's a reason why I put all this on this slide. And the reason is I want to show how complex the relationship with ourselves is. And I mean, a psychologist can even go deeper and explore the ego and the defense mechanisms, but that's not the purpose of this webinar training. So I know it's complex. Now, here's the happy face. Let's simplify it. And I simplify by using this diagram to present to you the relationship with yourself, your words, your thoughts, your decisions, your imaginations, your actions, your perception of yourself, your values, and how you believe others perceive you. And I put this all together in this diagram to portray all those things that combine to contribute to that relationship that you have with yourself. You know, and I want to share something quickly. And it's from a book I read by Dr. Bogo. He's a psychotherapist. And I think the book is entitled, Why Do I Do That? You know, and he eloquently portrays how our psychological defense mechanisms shape our lives, how it contributes to our emotional landscape, fear, anger, shame, jealousy, confidence. But I particularly love his views on happiness, and I want to interject with this here. And I want to quote, he says, everyone says, all I want to be is happy. And it's true. How often have you heard this saying? All I want to be is happy. But he said his therapist asked him one question, and this is the question that he asks his clients. Are you interested in learning what you actually do feel, or only in feeling one particular way? Think about this. Are you interested in learning one particular way or how you actually do feel? Because when we learn about how we actually do feel, or let's look at the opposing scenario. What happens if we neglect to learn how we actually do feel and all we want to be is happy? What happens when the markets fail? What happens when you lose your job? What happens when you get a negative doctor's report? What happens if you get news of redundancy? What happens with, let's say, the economic downturn? You know, and he talks about how people bury themselves with alcohol and drugs to get rid of that pain instead of learning how to bear the frustration and the disappointment and determine what lesson can be learned. So it's important to pay attention to that relationship that you have with yourself rather than just want to feel one particular way. Now, I know that we looked at the complex side and we're going to even break it down further. And this is how I simplified for you tonight. Your relationship with yourself, we're going to look at the self-concept and self-awareness. And this all contributes to the self. Is this simplified for you? Type yes or no in the chat box. Yes, thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, David. Indeed, yes, we are complex and we tend to think we are complicated. Yes. So I've simplified it tonight in order to bring about the awareness that I want all who listen to this training, even those who will listen to the replay afterwards, by the end of this training will develop that sense of awareness of the importance of that relationship with themselves and see how it can contribute to not just their personal life, but even in business, even in their profession. So let's start with self-concept. As we looked in the diagram, self-concept, this is the first one we will be addressing. And self-concept refers to the collection of beliefs about yourself and who you are. It actually is a mental picture of yourself, your abilities and your characteristics. So your self-concept would be, do you think you're a kind person? Do you think you have what it takes to succeed? Or is your self-concept something like, I can never succeed at anything. I'm not a very nice person. Things never work out for me. What is that concept? What is that mental picture that you have of yourself? Because we all have a concept, a mental picture of ourselves, of our ability, of our personality, of our characteristics, of who we are. What is your mental picture? And Carl Rogers describes 3 components of self-concept: the self-image, how you view yourself; self-esteem or self-worth, the value that you place on yourself; and ideal self, how you wish you would be. And we're going to go into each of these aspects tonight. The self-image, how you view yourself. Now, several factors influence how our self-image is formed: our upbringing, our parental influences, the institutions that we go to in society, whether it's church or community groups, our friends, and even the media. What is it that we can be influenced by the media? What do you listen to on the television? You know, and the kind of friends that you're acquainted with can contribute to your self-image, contribute to how you view yourself. Let's look at the business aspect. Are you surrounded by naysayers? And even if we were to go back to our childhood, and let's say, for example, I can use an example from my own personal life, where I grew up in a home where success is getting a great job in the 9 to 5. In the society I grew up in, the school, the institution I attended, even though I was taught business studies, you're being taught business studies, but yet still, the mindset of the institution, of the teachers teaching you is get a great job. So you find this helped to shape me as a youth, my views on entrepreneurship. And I grew up thinking that you can't have success as an entrepreneur. You have to work so hard. You have to neglect family and neglect everything else in order to achieve success. It helped to form my interpretation of entrepreneurship. So you see, all these factors contribute to the shaping of my self-image, and by extension, the decisions and actions I made. And hence, before I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, I went through a struggle in my mind, and I had to work on my mindset to accept it, and hence construe a new self-image of how I'm going to view myself. So it really matters. What is your self-image? How do you view yourself? And look back at some of the things that have, however you view yourself right now, reflect on some of those things that have influenced the shaping of that self-image. Perhaps it's your mother or your father, and perhaps it's a positive influence. And what are some of the negative influences? Now, psychology has found that some people refer to one or more of these dimensions when they think of self-image: their physical description, the roles that they play. And it's true that we all play roles in society. If we are work from home mom, we have to put on that role. And then when it comes to time to teaching our kids, we put on the role of a mother. You're an entrepreneur, you're playing the entrepreneurship role. And what happens is that when you're in that role, it defines who you are and what is expected of you. So these are also some things that contribute to your self-image, the role that you presently play, your personality traits, some of the things that we can't escape. Personality traits can be changed, whether we are an introverted person, but we're required to put ourselves out there and become not necessarily an extrovert, but go into the public light in order for our business to grow and in order to brand our business. Personality traits can be changed, but it takes determination and commitment to do so. Whether your personality trait is jealousy, that too can be changed. Another thing that contributes to the formation of self-image is existential statements. Some persons who make the statement, I'm one with the universe. All these contribute to shaping how they view themselves. But one thing I want to mention here is, regardless of your view of yourself, what your self-image is, it's important to know that it may not reflect reality. Because depending on the factors that I previously mentioned, we could have developed unhelpful ways of thinking. For instance, emotional reasoning, someone who believes that they're fat when they're not. And their self-image, how they view themselves as fat and ugly when they're actually not. Another one is someone who views themselves as unlovable, and despite a wife views herself as unlovable. And perhaps a husband forgot to send her the flowers that evening. And because of how she views herself, she interprets that absence, that don't want to call it neglect, but that lapse where he forgot, and take it to mean he doesn't love me anymore. And this now contributes to how she views herself. She's not pretty, I'm not pretty, he doesn't love me anymore, and it impacts her decisions and her actions. And we all know where that could end up if she doesn't develop that self-awareness and enhance that relationship with herself in order to avoid conflict and handle the situation in the way that it should be handled. Let's talk about self-esteem or self-worth. It refers to the value that you place on yourself. How much do you like or accept yourself? Now, our self-esteem can be either positive or negative. Now, I want to mention here, when we're talking about self-esteem, we're not talking about the momentary lapse of unhappiness with ourselves. You know, days when you're probably in a low mood for some reason. What we're talking about is your general feeling. Do you usually belittle yourself, discredit yourself, talk negatively about yourself and your future? Usually, what is that value that you place upon yourself? And I want to ask you this question, and you don't need to put it in the chat box. It's just for you to reflect on. How would you describe your level of self-esteem right now? Would you describe it as high, that you place high value upon yourself? Would you describe it as low? Because unfortunately, some of us, our self-worth and our self-esteem is determined by our material acquisitions. And we characterize our self-esteem right now as low because we have not gained those material acquisitions. Would you say that it's in the middle? Would you say that it's sometimes high and sometimes low? And it's something that you probably need to pay attention to. So a positive or high self-esteem, it occurs when we have a more positive view of ourselves. A negative or low self-esteem occurs when we have a more negative view of ourselves. Someone with a high self-esteem is someone who exudes confidence. That person is generally very confident, an optimistic person, a positive person, more accepting of themselves. Now, you can be self-accepting, but it doesn't mean that you're not committed to growing and developing. But you're more self-accepting into who you are and with the things that you need to change. And that's why you have a more positive self-esteem. You're not shaken by what others think. Whereas somebody with a low self-esteem will have a lowered self-confidence. They'll be more pessimistic. Because remember, they have a negative view of themselves, a more negative view of their future. So they're highly influenced by what other people think about them. And they might tend to take on the identity of someone else, particularly if there is someone in their life who has a strong influence over them. That person can contribute to shaping the negative identity that they have acquired. And let me bring in a quote here by Dr. Joseph Burgo, the author of Why Do I Do That? He says, developing a sense of personal worth involves feelings of pride, integrity, and well-being that leads to contentment with oneself and one's world. A strong self-esteem is linked to happiness and fulfillment, whereas the alternative is shame, and it's one of the most deeply painful feelings, and it interferes with the experiences of happiness and contentment and stops us from getting what we need. I know it's a mouthful here, but I had to interject with this quote because it's so vital. Now, you find self-esteem and self-worth is something that persons may not necessarily pay a particular attention to, or may not necessarily see how it is impacting their lives. Perhaps you're on a journey to your goal, whether your goal is growing your business, taking your business to the next level, whether your goal is completing a book that you've been working on for the last 7 months, whether your goal is bringing back that life to your marriage, and that goal takes time to get there. But you see, if you have a low self-esteem and a low self-worth, it will definitely stop you from getting to your goal because you don't value yourself. You won't be able to develop the characteristics that you need to develop in order to achieve that goal that you want to achieve. So I want to encourage you to pay attention to what is the status of your self-esteem and your self-worth right now. And what factors are you allowing to influence how you value and shape and feel about yourself? Are you allowing society to influence how you value yourself? Are you allowing the Forbes rich list? Are you allowing the top CEOs list? What are those factors that you are allowing to influence how you value yourself? And now I want to ask you 2 questions. Do you have any idea of how you would like to be, the person that you would like to become? Is that something that you've ever thought of? Just put yes or no in the chat box. Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you for responding. Great. And if you haven't thought of it, it's great that you're here. It's wonderful that you're here so that you can begin to ponder upon this. Do you have any idea of the person that you would like to become? Now I want to ask you another question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, you don't have to put the response if you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. But reflect on your answer, your response. How far would you say you are from becoming that person that you would like to become? Would you say with 10 being the highest, would you say that you're close to it? Or would you say that you have a way to go? Great. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. So, why did I bring this up? Because we're going to deal with the 3rd component of the self concept, your ideal self. Your ideal self is how you wish you would be. It's the best version of yourself. Now, I know that the questions I asked you prior is not a scientific study. It's just your own personal estimate of what you believe. So, your ideal self, it's the value that you place on yourself. The value that you place on yourself is largely impacted by your self-image and your ideal self. And that's why I begun this training first by looking at your self-image. So when you reflect on your self-image, you get an idea of who you are right now, how you see yourself, how you view yourself right now. Then you need to get an idea of your ideal self. Who would you like to become? You know, and psychologists refer to this as achieving a congruent or an incongruent state. Now, incongruence basically refers to the vast difference between a person's image of their ideal self and what they're presently experiencing in life. And if there's a vast difference, then there's a misalignment. And sometimes when we have certain outcomes in life, perhaps like a divorce sometimes. I mean, yes, there are many other reasons that could contribute to a divorce. But for example, a divorce can happen because of that misalignment, because the person's mental image of their ideal self and what they're presently experiencing in life, the gap is so far, and that causes them to feel that dissatisfaction. That contributes to their low self-esteem, their low self-worth. And this now influences the negative pattern of thinking, influences the negative thought process, and causes now those problems that come up between them in the relationship as a couple, which eventually leads to separation. But however, when there's a close alignment or similarity between the ideal self and your actual life experiences, then you achieve what scientists call, or psychologists rather call, a state of congruence. It's very rare to achieve a perfect state of congruence. But what we would like to do is to come close to it as much as possible. So, my question now is, how can you become the best version of yourself if you don't know who you really are? That is not possible. We cannot become the best version of ourselves if we first haven't taken the time to determine who we really are. And I want to thank you if you're still attending this training, if you're still listening to this training. I want to thank you for still being here, because we're going to get into the meat of it and bring it into your business and your personal life very soon. And understanding who you really are would require a high level of self-awareness. Because if you don't develop your self-awareness, you will feel just like this gentleman, unfortunately. I hope he gets saved. Just like this gentleman in the photo. You feel like you're drowning. Because poor self-awareness, which we will get into very soon, can have some really negative consequences and repercussions that you can feel like you're drowning. You know, and the Greek aphorism, know thyself, puts it very nicely. Because self-awareness is your level of consciousness about your thoughts, your feelings, your character. And many persons don't pay the importance of self-awareness. But it is actually a vital characteristic, not just for your personal success, but also for your professional success. Now, our self-awareness is core to developing our emotional intelligence. And I'm sure all of you listening to this training right now, and for even those of you who will hear the replay, have heard about emotional intelligence. And many business coaches and executive coaches are using emotional intelligence in the workplace and are experiencing great results. What is emotional intelligence? It's basically our ability to be aware of and manage our own emotions and even those of others. And it is an important attribute for strong interpersonal relationships and personal and professional success. Now, our self-awareness is core to developing that emotional intelligence. You cannot have high emotional intelligence without developing self-awareness. It's impossible. Because your self-awareness is what helps you to manage, helps you in managing those thoughts, helps you in managing your actions and your emotions and your behavior. Now, let's bring in some statistics. Now, I want to talk about a study conducted by Dr. Tasha Hughes. Now, she's an organizational psychologist and executive coach. And what she discovered was that there was actually a gap between science and the practice of self-awareness. Her team of researchers, I think they conducted 10 separate investigations with nearly 5,000 participants to examine what self-awareness really is, why we need it, and how we can increase it. Now, we're not getting to the findings here, but what I found interesting was the fact that many people believe that they're self-aware, but her study discovered that only 10 to 15% really fit the criteria. You see, because it's easy for, if you were to ask anybody, you go into the workplace right now and you were to ask someone, do you believe that you have a great sense of self-awareness? And quickly, person will say, of course I do. Yes, I do, definitely. But the boss came in, the boss didn't smile for them, and they're upset. And they don't even know why they're upset with the boss. Or someone does something that triggers them, and they're upset. And they're not even aware of what triggered them, what caused them to behave the way that they behave. So her study found that even the person say they're self-aware, when they were tested based on her assessment, only 10 to 15% actually fit the criteria. And if you're interested in reading about this study, there is the source on the screen. And she found that there were two types of self-awareness. It was, one is how you see yourself and how others see you. And she further went into identifying, I believe, 4 archetypes of internal and external self-awareness. But we won't get into that here. What we're more interested in is how you see yourself and how others see you. Let's bring in another statistics here. And this one is a study undertaken by the Greek Peak Partners on Cornell University. And in their study, they studied 72 executives at public and private companies. And what they found is that a high self-awareness score was the stronger predictor for success. So even in business, as leaders, we require to develop our level of self-awareness, because this study found it to be a great predictor for overall success. So I just want to ask you right now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if you're getting any value in this training thus far. Thank you, great value. Wow, thank you very much. Now, that's my energy drink to continue now. I have the boost. Okay, so let's move on. What we just covered is what is meant by the relationship with yourself. So we examined your self-concept, which comprises of your self-image, your self-esteem, and your ideal self. Then we looked at self-awareness. Now, I want to ask you out of curiosity before this webinar, was this something that you thought about? Your self-concept, your self-awareness? Did you give this any thought prior to this webinar? Great, great. That's wonderful. If you've been thinking about it, that's wonderful. So now we're going to examine how your relationship with yourself is impacting the results that you are getting in your life and your business. Now, how is your relationship with yourself impacting your work? For those of you who will be listening to this training and work the 9 to 5, or those of you who have businesses, let's look at poor self-concept, your self-image. Remember, your self-image is how you view yourself. So when you have a low self-image, really and truly, I put it this way, it's the house of all your limiting beliefs. You view yourself as incapable of success. You view yourself as never being able to achieve anything, as this person is more lucky than you. And if you have a business, your reflection, your business outcome, what you're getting in your business right now, is a reflection of who you are. And if you don't like the outcome that you're getting in your business right now, reflect on who you are and see what needs to change. And as we get into this training, you will discover some of the changes that you can make, that you can improve on, enhance, so you can enhance your own self-image, which then is portrayed through the outcomes that you will get in your business. Let's talk about your low self-worth. If you have a low self-worth, low self-esteem, low value that you place on yourself, you will have small or no vision for your business because you have a low self-worth, a low self-esteem. You don't value yourself. You won't value your business. Your vision would be small. You will reject opportunities that come to you. You might not even see them as opportunities because you don't believe in your own ability to succeed. Let's talk about your ideal self. Remember earlier we spoke about incongruence? That's the gap between who you are, between what you're presently experiencing and who you'd like to become. And if you have a high state of incongruence, you're dissatisfied because you're so far from what you would like to become. You could become reclusive at work. You might fail to build meaningful relationships because you're dissatisfied with where you are and what you would like to become. Let's examine low self-awareness. How is that impacting your work or your business? Because if you have low self-awareness, you will find yourself preparing, and I'll use a simple example there. You prepare your things to do list, and you have 20 items to complete for the day. Or you have 10 items to complete for the day, which is impossible. Because when you examine those items, you realize that some of the things on that list require deep work. You will realize that the training, the webinar training you need to prepare takes about 4 hours work, if not more. The PDF that you need to write takes how many hours of work? You will realize that the video script that you need to write takes about an hour work for research and drafting and reciting or learning or whatever you do in order to prepare for your videos. And you find yourself overcommitting yourself. And you're not aware, you wonder why at the end of the day, oh, why didn't I complete the items on my list? And you begin to beat yourself up. At the end of the week, you're beating yourself all over, you're bruised. Because you overcommitted yourself. And your low self-awareness didn't permit you to see this. If you have low self-awareness, you also have poor interpersonal relations. Why? Because you will not be able to manage your relationships properly in a healthy way. You'd foster unhealthy professional and personal relationships. Because remember, self-awareness is core to emotional intelligence. And because you have a low self-awareness, you will definitely have problems in managing your emotions. Some persons who have outbursts, it's because of that low self-awareness. One reason, or the low EI. Excuse me. If you have low self-awareness, you'll be an ineffective communicator. Whether you're trying to communicate individually to someone or in groups. Because you're not aware of the, how to put it, the tools for effective communication, whether it's listening and active listening rather, feedback, how the best way to transmit the message so that the person who receives what you intended for them to receive and that your communication is not misconstrued or misinterpreted. So your low level of self-awareness will inhibit your ability to communicate effectively at work or in business. Let's look at your personal life. Your poor self-awareness will contribute to, your poor self-concept will contribute to your low self-image. And remember, your self-image, how you view yourself. So you will develop those unhelpful thinking patterns like I mentioned earlier, emotional reasoning, comparing yourself to others. You will harbor all those disempowering beliefs about you as a person. And we all know that disempowering beliefs will prevent you from achieving any goal. It will have you feeling like a complete loser in your personal life. You have a poor self-concept, a low self-image. It impacts your self-talk because you will subject to that negative inner critic, and we all have that inner voice. There's no running away from it. We all, every single human being on this planet has that inner critic, that inner voice. And if you have low self-awareness, low self-image, then you will listen to that critic. You'll be victim of that critic. And you know what happens when you listen to your negative inner critic? Your negative self-talk follows. Forgive me for interjecting here, but the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if you listen to it, thank you. That's right. It's all about the flow of psychological momentum, Lord. You're very right. And if we have low self-worth, you will neglect or even abuse yourself in terms of your self-care, because you don't value yourself. So you don't even take the time to pamper yourself because of that low self-worth. Think right now. Do you neglect yourself, your self-care? Do you take the time to exercise, to pamper yourself, to treat yourself? If you have a poor self-concept, you will have low self-esteem. It will cause you to have negative emotions like shame, blame. People with low self-esteem, I find, are persons who put others down all the time. These are the persons who withdraw. And additionally, a high state of incongruence. Let's talk about the ideal self. And I'm repeating here, it's that gap between where you are presently right now, the actual circumstance, and what you'd like to become, the best version of you. You surrender to fear because you feel inept to reach where you want to be. And you will hinder yourself from making any progress in your personal life. Whatever goals that you are trying to achieve in your personal life, you will fail to achieve those goals because you're surrendering to that fear. Sorry, my slide stopped. Let's talk about low self-awareness, how it impacts your personal life. You tend to make lots of excuses. Yes, but you tend to be in denial. No, I'm not like that. Have anybody, there are some things. Now, I like to talk about constructive criticism. And there are some things, if we reflect, we can identify that we've heard that line quite often, whether it's from our mom or dad or cousin or uncle. Why are you so negative? Do you always have to be so negative? No, I'm not negative. Because they're in denial. If you have a low self-awareness, you have lots of regrets. Oh, I should not have. And you will always identify all the regrets in your life. Because your low level of self-awareness is not permitting you to see where you have made progress in your life, where you have succeeded in your life, where even your failures, if you want to characterize them as failures, or where even your, I'm looking for this word, we all go through challenges, where your challenges have caused you to become stronger and shape you into becoming that person of strength that you are right now. Thank you, David. Thank you. So that low level of self-awareness will prevent you from seeing that, and you would live with regrets. And the final thing I want to mention is that your low level of self-awareness will cause you to always expect negative outcomes in your life. You want to get out of the 9 to 5, but what if? You want to apply for a new job, but what if? You want to make that change so you could spend more time with your family and have a more balanced family life, but what if? And you tend to see the negative outcomes, And I just want to stop here. And I want to talk about low self-awareness a little bit because it's really important. And it impacts, as I demonstrated, your professional life, and it impacts your personal life. But we have to start from our personal life and make the change from our personal life so that we can see, eventually we would see the outcomes that we want to see now in our professional life. And I want to share a story. How many of you have ever tried to lose weight? And we all know the formula for weight loss. Eat less, move more. But we struggle. We struggle to lose the weight. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Lord. We struggle. We know what to do. We know we have to eat less and move more, but still we struggle. Now, it has nothing to do with the right body type. It has nothing to do with the right exercise for the body type. And there's some great books out there. I have a couple on my shelf right now. And yes, you can go into the science of that for greater results. If you want to go into the science of your body type and all of that for greater results. But the real reason why we struggle to lose weight is because of our level of self-awareness. And I share this because this is my personal story. This is a picture of me after my second child on the far left. In the middle is a picture of me when I started to exercise. And this is a picture of me after my journey. Now, this is a Photoshop of our album because in those days, we had the camera where you had to develop photos. It wasn't digital and I don't have the film right now. So I couldn't make a copy. So I had to take a snapshot of the album. But anyway, why I present this here is because I know I'm talking from personal experience. And I remember when I started on my journey of weight loss, I remember joining the gym and I paid my membership for that month and I started going diligently. But after a couple of days, I dropped off because I felt all eyes were on me and I was the only one looking like a big whale in the gym and everybody was looking slim and sleek. But you know what? When I became more self-aware, what I discovered is that I was struggling because I was comparing myself to others. I was struggling because I was engaged in stress eating and I wasn't even aware I was stress eating. It was only when my level of self-awareness was developed and enhanced, I realized that if I got stressed, whether it's from the kids and all the screaming in the house, or whatever it be, or whether it's from at work, coming from work at the end of the day, but I would go for that chocolate. I want something sweet, and I was stress eating. You know, and another thing I want to mention is that we're not even aware that that our mind is always on food. And I want you to try this. Try going through the day and try to become a little more conscious. Because even now I see it. Even today I saw it. That our mind, like subconsciously, our mind is always on food. Sometimes we're not even aware of how many times we're nibbling while we're cooking. And for those of us who cook, amen, yes, thank you. For those of us who cook, we tend to nibble so much, or even while we're in the house. How many times we're nibbling while we're going around in the house? But why do I say all this? I say all this to say that it is our self-awareness that helps us to identify those traits, identify those things that we do that are hindering us from the goal that we're trying to achieve. And then when I realized that I needed to discipline my mind towards food, and I stopped calling it a diet, and I looked at it as changing the way I eat, and then when I disciplined myself in terms of exercise, then I was able to get the results that I wanted to get. Because I was already suffering from health symptoms. I was seeing a doctor because I was overweight. So I had vertigo, I had the nodes in my back swelling, and I had to go and get massages because they were all swollen along my spine because of overweight. So it's very important for us to pay attention to our level of self-awareness and seek to enhance it or develop it. And now, let's get into the last part of this training. How to improve your relationship with yourself for overall success. But before we do that, let's first examine some of the outcomes for an enhanced relationship with ourselves. And we would have alluded to some of it previous in the slides, but let's look at this from a different perspective. If you have a more positive self-concept, then you will more easily exhibit the character traits for success. Remember, your self-concept is how you view yourself, how you value yourself and the best version of yourself. All this combined, your self-image, your self-esteem, your self-worth combined to present to you your concept of yourself. And when you have a more positive self-concept, then it is easier for you to exhibit those traits that you need to exhibit for success. And I want to quote from Napoleon Hill, his book, Wishes Won't Bring Riches, I think. And he says, the inevitable result that Andrew Carnegie, his fortune was due to the inevitable result of the self-developed and self-imposed habits of Mr. Carnegie, page 66. The self-developed and self-imposed habits. And this is because if we read that book, we discover that Mr. Carnegie had a very positive and strong self-concept. He valued things like faith. He valued things like enthusiasm and hard work and discipline, discipline in your habits, discipline in your mind. So when you have a more positive self-concept, it's easier, even if you may lack some of these things, it becomes easier for you to work on enhancing those things that you may lack in order to attain the success that you want to achieve. If you have a more positive self-concept, you will better manage failure. You know, Napoleon Hill says, the same author, with every adversity comes the seed of an equal advantage. It's how you look at failure. Now, if you have a more positive self-concept, you will not look at failure as failure. And permit me just to read a quote from Dr. Carol Dweck. And we all know that she is the famous, psychologist on mindset, with the growth and fixed mindset. And she says, on page 33, even in the growth mindset, failure can be a painful experience, but it doesn't define you. It's a problem to be faced, dealt with, and learned from. And if you have a more positive self-concept, you'll be more willing to learn from failure. Whereas if you have a more negative self-concept, failure will crush you. You might even give up on your dream because of that low self-concept. But because of your strong self-concept, you push through your fears and you will do things that you've never done in your business. You will take on those challenges and you will manifest the faith you need for success in your business and in your personal life. Let's talk about greater self-awareness. If you have greater self-awareness, like we discovered from the study previously, you become a better leader. We found that it was a high predictor for success. For leaders, you'll overcome limiting beliefs. Because of that greater self-awareness, you will be able to quickly identify when that limiting belief surfaces in your mind and kill it before it grows, according to the saying. Stop the inner critic in its track and not allow that limiting belief to change your mood and cause you now to become distracted and cause you now to put down the activity that you're doing and do something else because you don't believe you could succeed at this. You're way in over your head. But your greater self-awareness will help you to recognize, you know what? This is a limiting belief. Yes, I can do videos. I can do videos. And even if my first one is crap, the second one will get better. And the third and the fourth and the fifth. And it can only get better as I keep doing it. When you have a greater self-awareness, you recognize the impact that persons have upon you. Have you ever had the experience where you've spoken with some persons or a particular individual, but every time you leave that individual, you feel so depressed or down, and you can't tell why? But every time you encounter this individual and you all speak for a while, you leave feeling so down. And it's upon reflection, searching yourself, you realize this person is really negative. And when you have a greater self-awareness, you recognize who those naysayers and unbelievers are in your circle. You know, there are some people who don't support your dream. You know what to tell them and what not to tell them. so that it doesn't impact your enthusiasm in your pursuit of your goal. When you have a greater self-awareness, you'll be more open to growth and development. And you will foster stronger partnerships, like I explained this previously. I won't go into it here. You become a better communicator, a better listener, and you'll have a much higher emotional intelligence. So what's the defining moment here? The defining moment here is you want to improve your relationship with yourself so you can achieve a higher state of congruence. Because we know perfect congruence is not possible, but a higher state where you're able to close on that gap between who you are, what you're presently experiencing right now, and who you'd like to become. And then as you develop that great level of self-awareness and character, it will be a driving force behind your business and your personal successes. This is the defining moment. This is why you're listening to this training, so that you can develop that relationship with yourself. You can achieve that higher state of congruence and work towards who you would like to become, so that you can have greater success in your business and your personal life. So now let's dig into my toolkit here. Let's dig into the life coaching toolkit. And let's take out some of the tools you can use to improve your relationship with yourself for overall success. And we're going to identify 4. You're going to develop greater self-awareness. To improve your relationship with yourself, you can take note of this. 1, develop greater self-awareness if you want to improve your relationship with yourself. 2, know your strengths and your weaknesses. 3, identify the gap. At least do your best between your ideal self and your self-image, and then determine how you could bridge that gap. And 4, exercise and nurture yourself. And funny, someone might wonder, why did she put exercise here? But we'll get to that. So let's talk about developing greater self-awareness. And we can do this through mindfulness. And we all have heard that term today. And we know it means being in the present, being more aware of yourself, your environment, and the world around you. And some mindfulness practices, you can do breathing exercises. You could read inspirational content daily. I try to do that. It really helps me. Or listen to an inspirational song. Laugh more. You know, sometimes adults, I know my husband and I, we sometimes talk about that. You know, adults, they need to laugh more. Look at children. Look at how much they play. Look at how much they laugh. And sometimes we become adults and we get so serious. And there's a time for everything, indeed. But sometimes we need to learn to laugh more. And that laughter, you know, can help us. There's laughter psychology. Do you know that? Laughter yoga. You know, the laughter can help us a great bit. I remember attending a workshop a couple of years ago. I worked as an assistant HR manager. And all the managers of the organization were at this workshop. And the consultant, she began the workshop with laughter yoga. And it invigorated us at the beginning of the workshop. So it works, you know, to get you into the present, get you to become more aware of yourself in the moment. You know, another one is journaling. Or before you go to bed at night, perform a mindfulness assessment. You know, reflect upon your day, reflect on what worked and what didn't work and why it didn't work. Or you can have daily intentions. Your daily intentions where, okay, in the morning and in the afternoon, I'm going to take 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And that's a beautiful thing about mindfulness, even meditation. You don't need to take an hour to do so. A few minutes just to be in the moment. Today I took my son for a walk after I dropped my daughter to school. And he wanted to see the ducks. And we went there and we stayed just about 5 minutes. And for a moment, I just forgot everything else. And we watched the ducks. We took a small 2-minute video, watching the ducks as they swam in the pond. And they looked so at peace. And everything that moment was just so beautiful. And moments like these help you to develop greater self-awareness. Another thing is be open to constructive feedback. And I say constructive because we all know that there are some persons we don't need to listen to in our life. They're so negative. But we know what is constructive feedback. Constructive feedback contributes to your growth and development. It's not feedback that puts you down. It's feedback that helps you to grow and develop. Or if you want to develop greater self-awareness, a third thing you can do is some self-awareness reflection exercises. I know that the study by Dr. Tasha, if you go into her website, I know she has a couple self-awareness exercises. I'm not sure if it's something you have to pay for, most likely. Or here are some self-reflection questions to raise your level of self-awareness. And this is taken from Gerard Egan. If you want to get that book, he's the author of The Skills of Communicating and Relating to Others. And what I love about that book, although it's talking about communication and relating to others, we all know that you cannot become a better communicator. You cannot build strong interpersonal relations. You cannot manage groups, or have healthy partnerships without working on your level of self-awareness. So he has some great exercises in there to help you develop greater self-awareness. And I just put some of the questions here, taken from page 19. What do you think about yourself? I just included good and bad times. Because sometimes we think good about ourselves in the good times and then we think bad about ourselves in bad times. But what do you think about yourself? How much do you care for yourself? Do you ever hide the truth about you from yourself? That's an interesting question. Some of us hide the truth about us from our own selves. And we don't want to face that reality, face that truth, that we need to change or that we need to work on X, Y, or Z. Have you been good to yourself lately? Or have you been neglecting yourself? You know that you need to take some time off to rest or spend time with the family or pamper yourself. Have you been good to yourself? Have you gone shopping for yourself lately? What about the visit to the spa that you've been putting off? Or the family vacation you've been putting off? Do you know the things that cause you to feel disappointed or unhappy about yourself? What about your strengths and weaknesses? Or for some people, is that all you ever think about is yourself? And here are a few more that I collated. How do you generally feel about yourself? What's the nature of your self-talk? Now, all these questions are questions that can help trigger your reflection and help you to develop a greater understanding about who you are. Because remember my question in the middle of this training. How can you become the best version of you if you don't know who you are? If you don't know what triggers your negative thinking? If you don't know just watching a particular movie or listening to a certain thing on the news triggers that negative thinking, or a remark made by a loved one triggers the negative thinking. If you place little value on yourself, how do you deal with failure, with disappointments or disagreement? How do you use your time? What promises? Do you know that we make promises to ourselves? Oh, I promise that I'm going to start exercising, or I'm going to start eating healthily, or I'm going to start being more committed to my business. What are the promises that you're making to yourself? Do you usually keep them, or do you find yourself breaking them? And if you break them, I'm not here to put you down. I'm here to tell you that now is the moment. Now it's the right moment. If you're listening to this training, it is because you've taken the first step to making the change that you want to make in your life. If you're listening to this training, you've taken the first step to developing your level of self-awareness to come closer to the best version of you. So, know your strengths and weaknesses. That was the second tool in our toolbox. Now, there are two models you can use to know your strengths and your weaknesses. The SWOT analysis, although it's used in business, I also use it on a personal level. And the GROW model. You want to grow so you can reach the sky. So your strengths and weaknesses. The SWOT analysis. Your strength speaks to your skills, your talents and abilities. Your weaknesses, I like to call them your areas for development, the opportunities and the resources and support that are available to you And the threats are the obstacles that you presently face in your personal or professional life. Now remember, the SWOT analysis is used in business, but here we use it on a personal level to identify your own strengths and weaknesses. What are your talents? What are the things that you're good at? You're a great listener, a great writer. What are your areas for development? What are some of the things you know that you need to work on? Some of the things you know that you need help with, so you know it's an area for development. And it's okay if there are things that we need to outsource at times. That's all right. But sometimes there's a core activity that we're doing. Let's say, for instance, as an entrepreneur, you are required to do videos, whether you're building your YouTube channel, whether you have to attend interviews on television, or whether you have to make a presentation at a workshop. So that is something that's part of your core activity. Then you know, okay, if I'm a person who's shy on camera, it's an area for me to develop. I'm shy on camera. You know, I did a course on Udemy. I can't remember. I think his name is TJ Walker, if my memory serves me right. And his course was on public speaking. And he did a little experiment. And the experiment was, he told persons they were sitting facing a camera, and he told them to talk for 5 minutes about themselves. I believe it was about themselves or something, or the business that they do, or something. I can't remember, but it's a topic that they're comfortable with. And the camera appears to be on in front of them. And they did terribly because the camera was on. Then there was another time he did the experiment and the camera appears to be on in front of them, but he switched it off. And when they realized that it was switched off, there was a completely different delivery, put it this way. There was a completely different delivery when the camera was off to when it was on. So it wasn't that they're not able to speak in public. It's not that they lacked the ability to communicate to others, but it was just the fact that the camera was, they know that the camera was on them, facing the camera, talking to the camera. So I say this to say, depending on your core activity, something that's necessary for you to do, that you may have an area that you need to develop in order for you to do that activity to the best of your ability. What are the resources that are available to you? Perhaps you have good family support around you. That's the opportunity. What are the threats? Any obstacles you face? Perhaps your obstacle is you work 9 to 5, so you don't have the time. You know, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses is essential for business success, not just personal success, but for success in your business. And let me interject with a story here. And it's the story of Michael Jordan. And we all know Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever. But do you know, Michael Jordan was cut from the high school varsity team. He wasn't recruited by North Carolina State College. And he wasn't even drafted by the first 2 NBA teams. And when he was cut from the team, he was devastated. He was crushed. You know what his mother said to him? His mother said to him, go back and discipline yourself. And do you know what Michael Jordan did? He went and he worked on his weaknesses. And he used all of his time working on his weaknesses. His defensive game and ball handling and shooting. That was his weakness. And his coach was actually so surprised by his willingness to always work harder. And after every match, he would always go and continue working on his weaknesses, and he would work harder and harder. You know, and Jordan says that his success, it really stemmed from his mind. You know, having that right mindset, knowing that area that you need to develop and work on it. So really and truly, what did he do? Really and truly, my friends, he took the time to work on that relationship with himself, where he became more self-aware of who he is and who he wanted to become, because he knew that he wanted to become the best. I mean, think of it, the rejection he faced. He wasn't recruited by the state college. He wasn't drafted in by the NBA teams. You know, and he was cut from the team. That rejection devastated him. So he knew he wanted to become the best. What did he want to do? He wanted to close that gap so that he would have a higher state of congruence. And he worked hard towards it. Now, the other model that we can use is the GROW model. Now, the GROW model is similar to the SWOT model, but I just wanted to present two, and you can use what's comfortable for you. And this model was actually developed by some business coaches, Graham Alexander, Alan Fine, and Sir John Whitmore. It was developed in the 1980s. And the GROW stands for goal, the current reality, O for options or obstacles, and W for your will or your way forward. And what these business coaches advise is that when you think of the GROW model, think of it as how you plan a journey. And that's why I put this road here to guide my thoughts. How you plan that journey. You decide where you want to go. You establish where you are right now. And then you make sure that you're committed to making the journey and you're prepared for any of the obstacles that you would face. Because the reality of the situation is we will face obstacles along the way in our journey to greater self-awareness. We will face obstacles along the way in our journey to developing a stronger self-concept. But are you committed? Are you committed to making that journey? Are you prepared to overcome those obstacles that you would face so that you can achieve the goal that you desire to achieve? Whether it's a goal in your business life, whether it's a goal in your professional life, whether it's a goal in your personal life. And now we want to talk about bridging that gap. You want to bridge that gap between your ideal self and your self-image, like Michael Jordan did. And the two steps you can take is identify who you'd like to become, and the steps you would need to take to get there. And you can determine who you would like to become by writing up your vision statement. How would you like to be remembered as a person? And the tool I have here for this is the eulogy model. Forgive me for using it, but it triggers the thought. How would you, if your eulogy was being read right now, how would you like to be remembered as a person? And this will help you. This will stimulate your thoughts in writing who you would like to become. Then when you've identified what you'd like to become, what are the steps that you need to take to get there? And part of that would include the information that you've discovered from your SWOT analysis. You would know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, those areas that you need to develop. And then you identify, what do I need to do to develop those areas to achieve the goals that I want to achieve? Whether that the area would require skills training, whether it will require getting a coach so that you can get to where you would like to be. And lastly, let's talk about exercise and nurture yourself. And I know some person listening to this training may wonder, why did she interject this here? Because really and truly, your relationship with yourself is also about nurturing yourself. And I'm not talking about self-love where you put yourself first, but self-care. And many persons fail to realize the benefits that are accrued from taking care of themselves and how it impacts the outcomes that they are getting in their life. You know, and for instance, we as parents, for those of you who may have children, we can relate to this. We can relate to always putting ourselves on the back burner. But yes, we know we always put the kids first, and it comes naturally, and that's good. We put our partner first, and that's good. What I'm saying is there are times that we need to take the time, whether it's once a week, every Friday, whether it's a Sunday evening, but you need to take that time to do something that you love doing and take care of yourself. Because how can you give off your best of yourself, if you're in a poor state, if you're overwhelmed and stressed, how can you give off your best of yourself to others? So really and truly, when you take the time to exercise, I have found from my own personal experience, is that exercise, when I do it first thing in the morning, I try to go 5:30 in the morning, at least 3 times a week. But I have found that when I do it, it really gives me great energy for the day, honestly. It helps my mind. I feel less stressed. I can't explain it, but that's how it makes me feel. And I don't do exercise to lose weight now. I do it just because of how it makes me feel. It invigorates me. So take that time, even if it's 30 minutes, do some exercise. Take that time. If you can't do it every day, every other day, or once a week, you go for that stroll, or you start back on that hobby, playing the guitar, writing your poems, whatever it is that you do that nurtures you, that helps you. Because really and truly, it will benefit you. It may seem like something intangible, but it contributes to the tangible outcomes that you have in life. Because look at someone who neglects themselves, their self-care. They're stressed. They lack patience. They will lack tolerance. And they could have a breakdown in their business and personal relationships. So I want to encourage you right now to pay attention also to this aspect of yourself. So what we've covered in this training is what is the relationship that you have with yourself, how your relationship with yourself is impacting the results that you are getting in your life and your business, and how to improve that relationship with yourself for overall success. If you have any questions, I know that I've asked questions in between, but if you have any questions, right now is the moment. Yes, I'm seeing here. And if you, I understand, Lloyd, that you suffer from that, but do whatever you can. Don't force yourself. You do whatever you can do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the training. And I'm glad that you were able to get some value from it. And I hope that you leave with a greater awareness of the importance of monitoring the relationship that we have with ourselves. And realize that we're with ourselves 24/7, and being able to master it better will definitely contribute to the outcomes that we'll get in our professional, our business, and our personal life. Thank you very much. Thanks, David. And I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you very, very much. And I leave you now. If you wish to connect with me, for all of you who will be watching the training afterwards, this is my website and my social links. If you wish to connect with me, you can reach out to me there. I want to thank you for all who took the time to attend live. Special thanks for attending tonight's training. And I want to encourage you on your journey. Whatever is your goal right now that you're working towards, whether it's coming out of the 9-to-5, whether it's building your business, whether it's nurturing your marriage, whether it's becoming a better father, whether it's becoming a better mother, parenting, whatever is your goal right now, I want to encourage you on that journey towards your goal, and to remind you that one of the tools to help you succeed at that goal is to develop greater self-awareness. Thank you for attending tonight, and I will send out the replay. I want to wish you right now a pleasant night. Thanks for attending. Thank you. Bye-bye.